Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Westworld Westcast podcast. I'm your host, Carmine of Red Team Review, and as always, joined by the bodacious Preston Jacobs. What's up, Preston?
The bodacious.
I always have to give you one new thing every time.
Cowabunga? I'm trying to think who used... Was bodacious more of a...
The Ninja Turtles?
Wayne and Garth thing, or was it a Ninja Turtles thing? Did you see Middle-Aged Mutant Ninja Turtles?
No, that's a thing? What?
It's just a short little skit on SNL, but it was pretty
fuck?
brutal. It was pretty brutal, yeah.
Anyways, guys,
Yeah.
welcome back to the Westworld podcast. This time we're going to be discussing episode 7, Past Pawn. As always, SoundCloud, iTunes, you know the gist. Leave your thoughts down below. We may cover them next episode, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this episode, the penultimate episode, not bad. I just had a few minor issues with it that didn't make any sense, but we'll get to those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think structurally it was a lot of exposition, big exposition dumps.
I was a little confused at times, especially with Caleb's story. It felt like it was a bit jumbled.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be jumbled. We'll get into that, but like the I would say like the overall structure, I was really exhausted from all of the exposition dumps because you go from Dolores explaining stuff to Caleb and Caleb asking these questions that Dolores doesn't seem to ever answer, and then it transitions to Solomon, doing these dumps of information, and then that's interspliced with Bernard doing dumps of information to Stubbs and William.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just getting information dumps where not much is really happening. And so when the Maeve fight happened, normally I think that kind of like dumb action stuff is superfluous, but I was so craving something to happen that when the Maeve fight happened, I was like, oh, thank God something's happening, like something's going on screen. So weirdly, like I usually don't, like usually the action parts are my least favorite part of episodes, but for me, the Maeve Dolores fight was my favorite part. Weird, right?
Yeah,
It's
normally
never-
you're
it's
kind of
never
like,
this case.
with action scenes, but
I
okay,
know,
okay.
I know. But I thought it was a pretty well done action scene because I like action scenes where you can tell what's happening. Like I think that, for instance, the new Road Warrior movie was really great because like if you look at those action scenes, like they're fast, but you know all of the action.
Road Warrior?
Mad Max.
Oh.
I'm sorry,
You
I
mean
called
Fury
it
Road?
Warrior. Yeah, Fury Road.
There you go. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one.
Those are action sequences where like you understand everything that's going on in the fight, like who is hitting whom with what, where, what is happening to that character. It's not somebody throws a punch and there's a cutaway and someone's flying and you're not really sure what's going on. Like the action is a story in itself.
That's one of the reasons I love Jackie Chan films and like kung fu films in general from China, because the camera stays still and you can see the action, whereas in the US, people don't know how to fight and a bunch of cuts all over the place.
Yes, and I think a good action scene is a story in itself, and so you can have a convoluted action scene where people are just throwing punches and you're not sure what's going on. And so I felt they did a pretty good job there's one cut away where you kind of don't know what happened to Dolores and how she set up that gun, but for the most part, when fighting Maeve, you kind of know who's hitting where and what's happening, So
I thought the sword initially was kind of a dumb thing because, people love swords, but at the same time,
Yes.
we've seen hosts survive gunshot wounds before, and I guess the sword is kind of crucial to cut off certain body parts and whatnot, and that's more effective against hosts, but...
I'm completely confused how strong a host is.
Well, they can punch you enough to where you can, like, fall back like you're in an anime, but I guess...
But I don't know how mortal a host is. Like, I don't know what would kill a host. Like, when Dolores is bleeding to death in an alley, I don't know. Right. I don't know if she's close to death or not. Like, I don't know, like, how long can she bleed to death in an alley? Can she bleed to death in an alley for a week? Or it's like I vaguely know, like, how long a human can bleed to death, Like, minutes, maybe 30 minutes max, like, and then they're gone, right? So, like, how long can a host last? When does a host pass out? Like, if a human being had their arm cut off, they'd be gushing blood and they'd pass out in seconds, right? And you better put a tourniquet on that immediately because that person's going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
But Dolores, like, runs like 300 yards to the EMP pulse. And it's like, oh, hosts can do that. They don't need
So you're
blood.
talking about you're talking about the comparison between her getting shot in the first episode and kind of like acting like she's gonna bleed to death versus her getting her arm blown off here and able to like go very far. I think it's just how they're programmed to receive pain, because they shouldn't like be like struggling that much, even getting shot or wounded at any point. They're robots, right?
Right, but at the same time, weren't they given robotic parts that so resemble humanity that they're indistinguishable, other than the fact that there's a light bulb in their skull?
I see that's the difficult one, because I don't want to say it's just the writers being assholes and trying to do a thing, but at the same, I don't want to say it's a mistake, but at the same time, yeah. I don't think she's feeling pain, or anything like that.
I just don't think it's established. Like when Teddy survived that transfusion in the first season, like, that no human being could survive that, and let alone, I don't know how the Man in Black got the blood from Lawrence into Teddy, but a human being wouldn't. And then he like healed up, pretty much after that. Like he was ready to die, and then he healed up, and yeah, his programming is going to be part of that, but at the same time, like, no human being could survive that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Well, let's start with the first thing that happens in the episode, which is basically Charlores calls Musashi to warn him that Dolores is letting all her copies to die. This kind of seemed a little weird, because why is Charlores pissed at Dolores and her clones? Like, why is that?
There's a lot of transient weird hatred, right? So let's say, and that doesn't quite make sense. Like, let's say Charlotte Dolores suspected that Dolores set that bomb and wanted to kill her. What does that have to do with Musashi Dolores? Like, wouldn't Charlotte Dolores, of all people, understand that being a different copy of Dolores is being a different person? So why is Musashi Dolores guilty of Dolores' crimes against Charlotte Dolores?
Exactly. Like, that didn't make any sense to me, but okay, fine, whatever. They're at the restaurant, and we find out that, of course, we all knew it was coming. Clementine was revived, but so was the Japanese armistice, Hanario?
Japanese armistice, yeah.
Why not get actual armistice?
Right, or why get Musashi? Why not get Musashi? I mean, Musashi, I thought it was really funny that Japanese armistice was upset that they used Musashi's image. And it's like, you could have saved Musashi. Like, Musashi was in cold storage like anybody else. Mm-hmm. They could have grabbed him.
Regardless, Dolores, I just not even gonna try.
My explanation for it is that regular armistice is crazy and too hard to control. So Japanese armistice is easier to control.
I guess that would make sense. It's just that at first I had to go, who is that again? And I had to go back. I had to look up who that was. I'm like, oh, I don't remember Japanese armistice as much as I do normal armistice.
Well, no, and Japanese armistice never really has a connection with Maeve. Like,
Right.
Japanese armistice spent her time like masturbating with regular armistice.
What?
Because they were like, armistice and Japanese armistice were in love with each other, so it's like masturbation. It's like Narcissus stuff, So it's just like she's in love with herself. That was the joke, Like,
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it.
She's a psychotic egomaniac, so of course she's going to be in love with herself. Yeah.
No, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it was played for a joke, but yeah.
Dolores and Caleb arrive at Sarek's re-education center in Mexico, where Solomon, an earlier AI developed by Sarek's brother, Jean-Mi, is constrained, and Caleb discovers that he's one of Sarek's outliers and one of the few that were successfully reconditioned, that he and Francis became agents to bring other outliers using a pill to subdue their memories. So that thing they keep taking over and over again, that's actually to, I guess, dull their senses and just at the same time, like, keep that shit away, right? Just keep them
Yeah.
calm and docile.
Yeah, and I think it can do lots of different things, but yeah, I think that's the main reason. Because we did see the one guy, there was that uh, Jesse gets that job where he's got to get that guy that's all drugged out. He was using the same thing, but it was more of an upper effect. They're using it as like a downer effect to like make to null themselves of the guilt and PTSD and the all of that kind of stuff.
So the thing that I'm a little confused about, well, not a little confused, it's just, it was weird how they were structuring the whole thing. So initially, everybody thought that Caleb killed Francis. I initially thought that.
Of course, yeah.
I initially thought
one of the least, like the worst kept secrets. Like they kept building up to this like huge reveal that I killed Francis. Of course you fucking killed Francis. We all know you fucking killed Francis. We had a whole bunch of episodes where Liam is like, you did it, and like everybody knows that he killed Francis.
But as time went on in the episode, I actually thought at first that, because we see him in the re-education center as a flashback, I actually thought that Caleb was never in the army or even had a friend named Francis, that they just programmed into his mind because he's an outlier and for him to stay docile. But that wasn't the case. It's kind of ingenious, actually, that they're using outliers to take out other outliers using that app, that crime Tinder app.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it would have been cleaner had he never been in the military. But instead, it's because now you've got a situation where he goes to war, and then he comes back, and then he becomes a criminal using the app. And you have a jump, because it's like, well, wait a minute. Why, when Jesse and Francis were honorably discharged from the military, and so it's like, why would they immediately go into this crime app business where they're following a nebulous app? Like, there's a big jump. Like, he would have to come back, like, fail to get a job, get bored, then discover this app somehow. I mean, there's a lot of steps.
Well, him failing to get a good job, we kind of already covered that in the first episode, right?
Sure, but we never established it, like, again, like back then, right? Because one of the things is he doesn't become suicidal until after he kills Francis. And so one of the big things, the reason he can't get a job is because he's suicidal. But he doesn't become suicidal until killing Francis.
Right.
So it's like, why? Like, I'm just saying that it would have, for all the flashbacks and repeating scenes, because they repeated a lot of scenes, like, why not explain, like, how he went from being an honorably discharged vet to criminal following an app that has no leader? Like, how do you go from those two, like, one to the other? I don't know. So I don't think they did a very good job in that sense, considering they explained so much of his backstory.
They did, but it was like I would argue it was a little messy. It jumped from one place to another, and at the end of the day, I just wanted them to show one turn of events, just explain one thing that happened instead of passing from scene to scene to scene to scene.
Yeah. I learned more about Francis. Like, I can understand why Francis was doing it, because Francis said that his boy was sick. And there's a lot in that line. Like, oh, my boy's sick. Like, because now you're like, oh, the system is probably killing his boy because it doesn't want outliers to have kids.
Right.
And two, like, he needs to pay for medical stuff, so that brings him into crime. Like, that one line was juicier than so much that was, like, overly explained about Jesse.
I think that is my problem with the whole thing. Everything was a bit too over-explained. They went into a little too much detail, and then at the same time, not enough detail, because we find out that Solomon, the earlier AI, he's like a little mental, but it's not really in detail how mental he is and why that's specifically a bad thing.
Yeah. Why is that relevant? He's like saying something that he's schizophrenic. Like, do they mean like TV schizophrenic, where somebody has multiple personality disorders, which isn't really real schizophrenia, but like that's TV schizophrenia? Do they mean that, or do they mean like something else? Do they mean he's depressed, having hallucinations, delusions? They never explained it. Like, does Rehoboam have an AI personality like Solomon? Because we never hear Rehoboam talk. One of the jokes that I saw online was somebody saying like how Caleb is so tolerant of Dolores' non-answers to everything. Like, hey, where are we going? We're going to a place that, that has something that we're going to a place that stole something from you. Well, and then he's just like, okay, and he's not going to ask any more questions. Like, I'm sorry, you're on horses. Like I don't know where they got the horses. I guess every Mexican airport has a whole bunch of horses in front of it. But they got these horses. That's going to be many, many hours on a horse to this place. You're never going to follow up that question? Like, like he's insane. Like, oh, he's an insane AI. In what way is he insane? That's a huge, like saying somebody's insane. Like that's huge, a huge broad reason. Like be a little more specific. Let's just say he was schizophrenic like his creator.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So even though Jean-Mi, Sarek's brother, created Solomon deemed him not worthy to be around anyway, and essentially put him in cryosleep along with a bunch of other outliers. So how come all the outliers are in cryosleep? How come some are allowed to roam around and some are in cryo?
Right, and some are murdered. Like, why do some get murdered and some get put in cryo?
Right, like, I don't...
In fact, why did they switch their minds about Jesse? Like Jesse was ordered to be murdered, and then they decided to reform him again and put him back out into society.
Mm-hmm. And how is this machine able to like snoop in on Jesse and his buddy Francis to determine that they should be terminated, but the machine doesn't like snoop in on Jesse when he's hanging around Dolores?
Right.
Like how come it's only omnipotent sometimes, but it's not omnipotent when it really matters?
Always listening, but then sometimes not listening.
Like, I don't... Okay, I'm just so confused about that. But, okay, so Caleb also learns he was the one manipulated by Rehoboam to kill Francis. Meanwhile, Maeve arrives at the facility to fight Dolores, and Dolores implores Solomon to establish Jean-Mi's plan for the world rather than Sarek's. So, Sarek's brother had a different plan, but Sarek thought, we should probably go with this one instead.
Right. Some sort of revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because they later call it revolution, but we don't know anything about it. And then Jesse is kind of like, tell me how to kill your creator, which is odd. Is like, shouldn't you be more specific and say Serac? Maybe I guess like because Jean-Mi is right there. Like, but so you kind of don't know what mission he gave him in the drive?
Right, I was going to ask you that because Dolores wanted Solomon to give him, like, the revolution plan. But he wants something kind of different. And you know how machines are. You got to be very specific, especially in this whole thing. So, and before he's able to warn Caleb of some kind of thing, Dolores activates the EMP after her fight with Maeve.
Caleb even makes it more ambiguous. He's like, because first you have the revolution plan. And then he says, tell me how to kill your creator. Which, okay, there's some ambiguity if you mean Serac or Jean-Mi. But, okay, maybe the computer's like, oh, he means Jean-Mi. Okay, I mean, he means Serac. Okay. But then he's like, but if the computer Solomon specifically says, like, but then I won't be able to tell you about the revolution plan. And then Jesse just says, tell me how to end this. Well, that's even more ambiguous. Like, tell me how to end this. Like, and then he just gives him the drive. And you're like, who knows what's on that drive? Everything was so ambiguous in that.
Yeah, and the other thing I don't understand is, okay, so the EMP goes off. Does that mean everybody in cryo is dead? Are they going to wake up? And if the EMPs can knock out the hosts, then how come Delos didn't have a whole EMP system back in Westworld?
Right. Why can't you just kill hosts with EMPs? Like, that's such a huge thing. Like, the discovery that, like, any host can be stopped at any time with, like, an EMP pulse. A computer person sent me a message saying that server systems today have EMP shields. So the fact that, like, Solomon would be stopped from an EMP pulse is, like, a little weird.
To be fair, they probably, like, purposely removed Solomon's EMP shields just in case, to be fair.
Sure, but okay, so maybe there's an EMP shield over the people in cryo sleep, but then, I don't know, like EMPs can scramble programming, so, there's some belief, Dolores or Maeve could be killed, unless but I don't know, it's such a huge thing, like, man, like, during the uprising, like, when they fought the Confederados, why didn't they use an EMP pulse? Like, when she fought Musashi Dolores in Singapore, why didn't he just like use an EMP pulse? Why didn't, when they wanted to stop Dolores at all those different times, or Charlotte Dolores at the Delos, when he was actually trying to scramble all the data and delete it anyway, use an EMP pulse, like, it'd be so easy. Like, man.
I mean, you could argue the reason Delos didn't use the EMP stuff at Westworld is because they didn't want to destroy all the equipment.
IP.
Yeah, they want to destroy all
they
the IP.
Keep using this word IP. I could understand why Delos didn't, because they have this encryption key, they have all of this valuable property. Maybe the EMP pulse can harm that. But for Serac, who actually wants to actively destroy it, yeah. I mean, he has every reason to use the EMP pulse.
And so Solomon, I guess, is gone. This version of Dolores, and Maeve as well. I don't know how Maeve's gonna come back, because we know Dolores has a copy of herself, but Maeve, maybe Serac copied her as well into another pearl, just in case.
In the previews they see we see a reconstruction, but it's true that like the fifth pearl could just be another Dolores copy. So all the other Doloreses die, and then this fifth pearl in Berlin
as a backup plan
is just another Dolores who's been chilling out at a beer hall, and
But would this Dolores know about Caleb, this new one?
I mean, I think they're updating each other.
Are they updating each other? Because it doesn't sound like they don't share a consciousness. They don't share because Prime Dolores kept certain informations from the other Doloreses. So
yeah, I mean, Musashi Dolores seemed to be giving a briefcase to someone, but he called it a him. So I don't know who it would be. I mean, it might be, somebody with Dolores inside them. Who knows? But
we were still waiting for Teddy, but I guess Teddy's done for now. It's gone.
Well, Teddy's personality is in the Valley Beyond, but his body, Musashi's personality was never in his body. So.
And lastly, Bernard learns of Caleb's special status and warns Ashley that Dolores' plan will see Caleb destroy humanity. As they leave, William proclaims his plan is to rid the world of the remaining hosts. Okay, so William, as always, has his own agenda, but it's kind of falling in line with Serac.
Being fucking bonkers, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, though, at first I was like, how does Dolores' plan have Jesse lead humanity, but at the same time, Bernard thinks it's to destroy? So someone on Reddit had a theory that Dolores' plan was actually said out loud in season 1. In the first episode, Dolores and Teddy are watching her family's cattle, and Teddy asks how they lead and herd all the cattle, and Dolores says that you have to pick out the Judas cow and lead him.
The Judas steer. Yeah.
Right, and where they go, the rest will follow. Caleb is the Judas cow Dolores is using to herd humanity. That makes sense because Caleb trusts Dolores, and if he does lead humanity, she can have Caleb lead them to their destruction. I guess that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's a very good theory. Yeah.
But at the same time, what really qualifies Caleb to lead anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why anyone would follow him, but yeah. I mean, I guess maybe if they're all sheep.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't. It's such an odd thing because, like I say, like when the material comes out about people, you'd think that 90% of people would be fine with their profiles.
Right, because not everybody can be a piece of shit asshole.
Not everybody can be a piece of shit out. Not everyone can be an outlier. They're specifically just mean to the outliers. Mm-hmm. So you'd think that most people would be like, yeah, I still got to go to work. I still got to, I don't care. I got a family to feed. But I don't know. Apparently, on the train, everyone was upset. Every single person. So maybe everybody's upset about their profiles and their futures. And Caleb is going to lead them. It's really quite weird because, okay, like Dolores got treated crappy by Delos, and maybe Serac is trying to kill her, but doesn't she feel bad that she's using Jesse the way she is? Like, doesn't she care about him? Shouldn't she? Does she have no sympathy she's just completely fine, like manipulating this poor dude, killing off a race of people.
I don't really think she cares. I think she just has... Because even Sarek said there's no chance for coexistence. There's no chance. The Valley Beyond, I guess, is the only way they could really exist in some form or another.
Yeah, Dolores has these horrible leaps in logic, you know, that get me. So Maeve comes in. So Maeve's motivation is fairly clear. She wants to protect the Valley Beyond, and the encryption key opens the Valley Beyond. And it's like she wants to keep the Valley Beyond encrypted. And then Dolores says, you know, if we can't be free here, we can't be free anywhere. And it's kind of a perverse Martin Luther King kind of thing. Because Martin Luther King said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Not that you can't have justice anywhere else, but it's that injustice is a threat to it. So, I mean, if hosts can't live on Earth, like, who cares how does that affect the Valley Beyond? The Valley Beyond can never be opened. Like, it can never be opened without that encryption key. So why does she think that they're all, you know, threatened? There's no reason for it. They should just destroy, like, Dolores should just destroy the encryption key, but
You're thinking way too much on this. Dolores is clearly just trying to have Caleb for some reason lead everybody to their downfall, but I just don't get why they will follow him.
Dolores just says so many lines like that where I'm just like, what? Like, you know, like last episode when they got on the plane and Caleb's like, maybe people shouldn't know their future. And she's like, you wanted to know your future. And he's like, well, I'm not like most people. And she's like, well, neither am I. Well, that doesn't answer the question at all. Like, most people, like, he's an individual. He is an exception. He wanted to know his future. But it doesn't mean all people should know their future. She never answers that. Or like, Solomon's like, we chose the path to protect the most people. Well, you didn't protect these people. Well, yeah, that's not the definition of most. Like, that's like, these are specifically the people that aren't being protected because we're protecting most. like it's so, like, there's such leaps in logic. And I don't know if it's just bad writing or if she's purposely being an asshole in order to manipulate Caleb, you know.
Isn't that the beauty of this show? Like, you don't know if it's bad writing or if they're doing a thing, you know?
Right. It's either the worst writing in the world or the best writing in the world. It's like, at this point, it's Schrodinger's writing. We don't know until the last episode resolves everything, whether it was like, you know, it made any sense.
All right, so Preston, let's talk about the final episode. I believe it's called Crisis Theory. And you were telling me, so before we start this, you were telling me that there's a line from Game of Thrones in this?
Kind of. At the end, he's you know, when Maeve, at the very end, when Maeve is talking to Jesse, she's like, it's not your choice to make, or she says to Serac, like, it's not your choice to make.
Oh,
then,
yeah.
She has to say, like, oh, you have to choose. You have to choose. There's all these, like, there's all these ideas that somehow choosing is some sort of, like, grand philosophical, like, idea, that there's something profound to the concept of choice.
Well, it's why supposedly Dolores chose Caleb to, like, lead this whole revolution, because his ability not to rape her during the government training exercise.
Super low bar. Like, are you not a rapist? All right. Good job.
Step this way, like, lead humanity. There you go. He's like, not a rapist, everybody.
Right, but it's like, in that alley, like, would you have helped me? It's like, why did you help me? And he's like, or, you know, what were your intentions in the alley? And it's like, you needed help. You know, it's like, wouldn't most people, nearly all people, if somebody's bleeding in an alley, like, try to help them? You know? All he does is call an ambulance.
She kind of implied that, like, he helped her because he wanted to fuck her. I mean, I don't think normal people.
That was a really weird scene. Like, as we watched that particular scene, because they were trying to make. Obviously, they're trying to make. We're jumping ahead, but they're trying to make Jesse seem like a rapist for a second.
or that his male impulses would have taken over while she's bleeding out. Like,
right.
Not really.
Like, no, yeah, like, and in the end, you're like, no, actually, Jesse's a good person, as we suspected all along.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a twist would have been, oh, Jesse was actually pretty sketch, you know, but that wasn't the case. Like, he thought, you know, having sex with sex puppets was not the thing to do, I guess, at Westworld.
All right, you want to start doing want me to do the summary?
Yeah, sure.
So Caleb takes Dolores' Pearl to a new body in Los Angeles, and this new body is one of the older model bodies. The new ones are like kind of like faux flesh and bone, kind of, while the original bodies from, like, you know, the beta testing, they're more metal, made to last, right? And the two make their way through the riots to Insight to plant the control module from Solomon to Rehoboam. However, they're intercepted by Charlotte Dolores because apparently Charlotte Dolores is pissed off about the death of Charlotte's family, even though
she thanks them. She's liberated now.
Yeah, and Dolores didn't send the assassins, though.
I guess not. Yeah, no. But she blames Dolores anyway because Dolores told her to stay behind and go in there and do all this stuff for her. But
Charlotte Dolores is also Dolores, so she's pissed at her. But she should have known that she would have done this. And at the what?
I mean, I'm still just amazed that the assassins would walk away rather than checking if Charlotte survived.
We'll get to how awful Sarek of a villain Sarek is in a minute. But
oh my god,
I will say I love how this society works in the sense where, like, gun battles are essentially won by the person with the highest amount of cash, because Dolores they're about to be, like, surrounded and killed, so Dolores basically tells the program, the assistant, offer the sniper 3 times to kill the 2 and walk away. I love that. It's almost like a video game. I love it. But by the way, did you notice, like, the little bridge they walk on? They probably passed it like 4 times in the episode.
Yeah, they just keep going back and forth over it. There's that same overpass.
There's a lot of filler in this episode, a lot of walking from place to place, and a lot of, like, people just looking at each other and walking.
I did notice that because it has a long runtime.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually, you know, when I was putting together my video, I have to take stills, you know, as I go along. And then at the end, sometimes I'm like, I take a still of every significant event, right? And then I make a comment on it. And it's funny, though, because it's like I finished, and there's just as many stills as a regular episode, if not fewer. But it's 50% longer episode, you know, because there's just meaningless action or, like, walking or, you know, Jesse putting together Dolores' body takes forever, you know? It's just all sorts of random stuff like that. Which I understand, like, they spent a lot of money on that Dolores metal body scene, which looked great.
It looked good. Like, I liked it.
It looked good, but they definitely wanted to, like, show off the scene now that they spent the money on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we get another fight scene where Maeve fights Dolores to retrieve the key for Sarek, and during the whole fight, Dolores' body is disabled. I will say, though, apparently Dolores is better than Maeve now because her metal body gives her extra strength. So
I guess so, but also Charlotte Dolores is more powerful than everybody because she can just shut down Dolores at any time. I don't know why she didn't shut her down in the previous scene, but she shuts her down there.
Yeah, well, Maeve takes her to Sarek, where she's connected to Rehoboam. Sarek has her memories deleted when she refuses to give Sarek the host data. Dolores' memories begin deleting quickly, and in her last moment, she inspires Maeve to turn against Sarek.
I mean, it's a parallel of season 1 in the sense that Ford planned it all. Now it's Dolores planned it all. That, like, everything was planned ahead by Dolores to turn Maeve and Jesse.
But so the one thing that correct me on this because I'm having trouble with this one. Hold on. Throughout the entire season 3, Dolores outright states that she wants to, like, destroy this world, destroy the humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this last one, was this an epiphany she had? Did she go back on this decision at the very last moment of her life, or did she always have this idea?
And I complain about this. I go on a big rant. I'm putting together my video now, and like I go on a big rant about this because this is not. So the big point I make is there's a difference between there's a good twist. There's a twist. And then there's lying and dishonest storytelling and having contradictions. Okay, mm-hmm. So like a twist is where the previous information you've misinterpreted, but now that you have come to the end, you get to reinterpret that. You realize that your interpretation was short-sighted, and now you have a new interpretation of the information that you've been provided. So, for instance, you're watching The Sixth Sense. You interpreted it one way, and then you get to the end and you realize Bruce Willis was dead the whole time, and you're like, oh, and that makes sense. All of these odd scenes that I had been ignoring the whole time make sense now. Mm. I have to reinterpret the whole thing. But there was no bad information. Like, it's not, he didn't say, at the end, they don't say, oh, forget about scene 5 and scene 10 and scene 15. Those didn't happen.
But that's happening here. We're supposed to forget all those times Dolores outright stated that she wanted humanity to be destroyed and all that stuff.
At the beginning of this episode, she says, I was taught to see beauty in the world. I was taught a lie. And then at the end, she says, I choose to see the beauty in the world. Those are a direct contradiction to each other.
That's what I'm confused about. So at the very last moment of her life, she went back on what she originally wanted to do?
No. She planned it all. Everything, the reason that Musashi Dolores was chosen, and I imagine, everything, is that she was trying, it was all planned for Maeve.
What?
She was trying, she was trying, this was a master plan to get Maeve to switch sides to her so that Maeve could guide Jesse. Now, it also fundamentally doesn't make sense because you can't have a master plan and then talk about free will that you can't predict at the same time. Which is, it's the contradiction of season 1 as well. Dolores has gained free will, but it's my master plan that she's going to shoot me in the head. It doesn't, you can't have those two things together. She can't be awoken and have free will and be going outside of her loop because she has free will, but then have a master plan where you've planned every moment of her coming up to shoot you in the head.
I don't know, man, because first off, that master plan, it was not made clear that the reason she brought back Musashi is because she wanted to try and turn Maeve. And not to mention, Maeve and Musashi have one scene together, kinda, and that was not clear at all. Maybe I'm missing something, because there's always that one guy in the comment section going, I knew it, I saw it ahead, but I don't see that.
I think the implication is that she planned meeting Jesse in the alley, that she knew about him from Westworld, and that she had set the whole thing up. She wasn't really dying. She it closes some plot holes and opens others. When I say, oh, it's a huge plot hole that Musashi was chosen of all of the hosts, why would she choose Musashi? Well, it makes sense if she's trying to induce reaction from Maeve. Mm-hmm. I don't really understand what reaction she's inducing, but you get it. At least you're in the same ballpark. If everything is Maeve focused, then maybe she would choose Musashi for some odd reason. But if Maeve has nothing to do with her plan, there's no reason to have Musashi. So I think it had to do with that she has a master plan.
Well, here's the thing. This is not outright stated. This is really you just trying to make sense of it, and I commend you for this. I
think this is my other problem, is that Bernard sits there at the end and is like, oh, I know now that I misjudged Dolores. It's you haven't even talked to her, but oh, I'm connected to her. But you were connected to her before and you got all these interpretations wrong.
Well, so Sarek has her memories deleted when she refuses to give him the host data.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I do apologize.
Yeah.
Before we continue, what's Sarek's main goal again? I keep forgetting what his main goal is, because his main goal is to keep order in the world. I get that, but what does he want? He wants the host data, or does he want the data from the people that went to the park?
I mean, so they kind of messed this up, and you get to the last episode, and I think they're trying to reconcile the fact that he's been given two clear motives. Like, at first, he's got the motive of, like, he wants to get rid of hosts because he can't predict them and their outliers, their divergences. But then he also wants the Sector 19 data because he thinks it'll give Rehoboam better predictions. Even though his predictions were pretty good in saving the world without Sector 19. So he, like, wants the key to get the Sector 19 data, which just happens to be the same key that opens the Valley Beyond.
Right. So
Yeah.
so Dolores convinces Maeve to turn against Sarek. Maeve proceeds to kill Sarek's men and wound Sarek in the ensuing gunfight. And Rehoboam is deleted by Caleb. Now with full control, he and Maeve leave in sight. So let me get this straight.
By the way, I love how when Caleb wants to get off of the Francis program, they're like, you have to say confirm, and he's like, confirm. But when you want to delete Rehoboam, instantaneous, like, no warning, like, are you sure? Anyway, continue.
So let me get this straight. Sarek ends up giving Dolores exactly what she wants in the end, like by mistake, because, like, he's trying to, like, get Rehoboam to, like, delete her memories. Okay, cool, because he wants the key. But apparently, because he thinks it's in her mind, but it's not. It's in Bernard's. But while she's connected to Rehoboam, she uploads her own mind and, like, also, like, Solomon's whole, like, idea into Rehoboam during she's connected to him to give Cal control of Rehoboam.
So I think
you think so. You don't know. Okay, so all right.
I don't know. What I know is that in her last memory was a piece of Solomon that gives access to Jesse. Now, Solomon does download something into Dolores's mind in the last second of his life before the EMP pulse. And you definitely see Dolores look at Rehoboam or look at Solomon with a weird look. And then he downloads something in. So it might be that last memory was a backup plan. Like, Jesse gets the drive in, the drive does the job. The drive deletes Rehoboam and whatever. But if it doesn't, then they've got the final memory of Dolores as, like, a backup plan.
So by connecting Dolores to Rehoboam, he kind of fucked himself, Sarek.
Yes.
Okay.
That, whether he had Jesse or not, he has that little piece of virus, which I guess is foreshadowed a little bit because they're talking about how. You know how Charlotte puts the computer virus into the Man in Black, and then the Man in Black, like,
experiences the
delivers.
Visions?
Well, no, but he delivers the location of Solomon. So, like, she put a computer virus into his blood, and then that revealed where Solomon was. Here, she's put a computer virus into her own brain, which destroys Rehoboam. You know.
Well, it doesn't destroy him. It just gives
strategy.
Cal control of him.
You're right. It gives Cal control of him.
So
and then he destroys him.
But Dolores is also being disingenuous in a sense, because at the very end she says that she sees beauty in the world, and if humans created her to see this beauty, then there has to be some beauty that they can see as well, so therefore they should make their own decision on their own destiny. And then, when Cal issues the final command to, like, order the machine to erase itself, which, okay, it also kind of, in a sense, still sparks the end of humanity just in a slower way, because Rehoboam really kept a lot of this stuff on lockdown. Without him there anymore, the Outliers will still eventually destroy their own world.
No, it's actually bringing it faster, according to Bernard at the end.
What do you mean?
Bernard says at the end that Rehoboam was actually unsuccessful. They were just pushing it off until a later date.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So
and that now we're having the revolution and apocalypse now.
Right. So just like with the hosts, in order for them to be set free, their world had to burn. Same with the humans. Right. Okay. But at the same time, though, they're not really being saved. But these Outliers eventually will destroy the world. It's still gonna happen if you think about it, right?
Well, I mean, the idea is that they have a free will choice to do it or not.
But humanity's always had its free will, and they chose to build nuclear weapons. And the thing with Paris happened with Sarek and his younger brother and his older brother when they were young.
Maybe with hosts around,
to guide.
They'll be to guide that somehow the two of them together will not allow humanity to destroy the world.
But okay, fine. So Dolores chose Cal to become humanity's revolutionary savior, leader, whatever. But what the difference with this is that Cal doesn't live forever. You're a fan of Roman history like I am. It reminds me of one of the golden eras of Roman history, the Marcus Aurelius age. And then as soon as Marcus Aurelius is dead, the golden era is done because his son Commodus is a fuckhead who kind of ruins the whole thing. So if Caleb is Marcus Aurelius, then the next person after Caleb to lead, because there has to be one leader, right?
Yeah.
The next person could be a Commodus. So, or a Caligula.
Which is the entire premise of Game of Thrones, is monarchy is a horrible system because, even if you get a good leader, the next one's not going to be good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's a mortal man. It's silly. It's also just really silly to be well, I'm going to give everybody free will, but to somehow think that has a better ending, because you can't predict that better ending.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you know?
So Sarek, see, this is why I like the character, but at the same time, I like the character's motivations. I understand it, but he still was a shitty villain because, no matter how much you try to crack it, the real villain here of the series is not Sarek, but it's really Rehoboam and what it stands. To think that these giant corporations have all this information on people and how they can use it to control everybody's destiny. That's cool, but at the same time, for an HBO television show, it doesn't make much of a compelling villain.
I was frustrated because at the end, they make Sarek into a puppet, and then they undo it. They're like, oh, it's actually Rehoboam the whole time, evil computer, and then they kind of say who are you to have control, accusing Sarek of having control over Rehoboam, and then the control of Rehoboam is transferred. It's wait a minute, isn't Rehoboam the one in control of Sarek?
It's they're both puppets, just kind of weaving each other's strings. But even Rehoboam is not an evil computer. It's just I thought Rehoboam was the true secret boss villain, but he's not.
It doesn't how can, if Rehoboam is sending messages, why would Rehoboam delete himself from Jesse's command?
Because Rehoboam is not the secret evil villain that we thought. Because that was the big theory, that Rehoboam is in charge. But Sarek wasn't really the puppet. Sarek was just using Rehoboam to tell him what to say, to I guess try to get out of the situations he's in, which makes sense. If you think about it, if he had a supercomputer that's done a ton of algorithm in its head and is telling you the perfect thing to say to get your way, I get it. So it doesn't seem like Sarek is the puppet. It just seems but at the same time, in a sense, he kind of is. But it's, see what I mean?
It's just there's so many contradictions that go back and forth here. Sarek So Solomon had like an AI that could like talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then why would Solomon have the ability to control access to Rehoboam?
So anyways.
I know, like, right? No, I mean, I've got like my laptop, but then I have my previous laptop from a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
Why would my previous laptop have the ability to break into my current laptop and transfer my password to someone else? Like everything just makes my brain hurt to think about it. Like you watch the episode and it's like, I guess this kind, and you're going along and it kind of makes sense. And then once you go back and you go, how did I get from A to B? How did I get from A to Z? I don't know. Like it doesn't.
Oh, and they leave Sarek just like
They
don't kill him.
No,
Yeah, they just leave him
no,
there.
of course, yeah. And if
Richest guy in the world, by the way. He's still rich.
Yeah, richest guy in the world who can't find anyone or stop anyone or go like every major facility that literally has the fate of the world in its hands is guarded by fewer than 10 people who can be easily killed, who can't hear the machine guns from the previous room, outside.
The guy is richer than Jesus Christ himself, and somehow Dolores is like he could do everything Dolores did. Like he could offer those people 3 times more money to turn on Cal and kill him.
Right.
The only reason a lot of those guys were following Caleb or Jesse in the first place is because they were paid by Dolores.
Right. So Sarah could just pay them more. Like Sarah has more money than Dolores. Like, and there's all sorts of just random things where you're just like, why wouldn't they have a key card system where you also punch in your like a number code like almost everybody that works in a secure facility has? Like he just gets the key card, it's like deep, and then walks in and fights one guy before getting to the panel. Like,
and even that one guy he fights, he beats him by sheer luck. The guy just slams his neck
like on the ground.
On the stair, like ugh.
Right. And
anyways,
if Rehoboam is this like intelligent guy like Solomon was, why wasn't it warning Sarek of everything when Martin Dolores was going in and doing all that crap? Like
because outlier can't predict the hosts.
Right, but he knows that someone's in the room.
That is true. I mean. It's established in the last episode that apparently Rehoboam can control all the cameras and stuff and like view things and see things.
Right. So why didn't Rehoboam, who is the puppet master, like when Martin Dolores comes in and like is ready to, release all the data, just be like, sorry, I've changed my codes, or alerted Sarek to say, hey, someone is in this room trying to get me to release all of the data. Like he all of a sudden, like they only like for some reason he's all of a sudden like Solomon in the last episode, but he wasn't like Solomon in all the previous ones. Like Solomon, Dolores walks into Solomon's presence, and he's like, "Oh, you're host unit whatever U56 beta from Delos, right?" Mm-hmm. When Liam brought in Dolores, why didn't Rehoboam do the exact same thing? Oh, that's a host.
Yeah, that is a plot hole. That is a plot hole. Well, okay, so
whatever.
We're missing the other people.
Where are we? Did we even get through the synopsis?
So Bernard survives the fight with William, but William shoots Stubbs, and
poor Stubbs.
William is staved off.
Yeah. Okay. I'm laughing at this whole scene, the whole scene because of the fight between Bernard and William. Well, I'm laughing because like, okay, so when writers do writers' room stuff, they'll they'll talk about an introduced plot, and then they'll usually like put a post-it note on the board of like, I've introduced something and now I have to like resolve it later because I've like introduced this plot, right? And so in episode 1, they've introduced the fact that like Bernard has a special button that can make him go berserk, right?
Right.
And so they have to use it later on in the season, right? So it's been 7 episodes. They get to the last episode and they're like, fuck, we need to have Bernard go berserk because we established it in the first episode that he has this ability. And they're like, well, what can we do? Oh, we can have a random fight with him and the Men in Black for no reason.
Well, the Men in Black, not for no reason. Men in Black is his new mission in life is to go and kill all the hosts because, and he says this later in the episode, he wants to save the fucking world. That was so cringe. He does not.
William is 70 fucking years old. You don't need high technology to defeat a 70-year-old man. Like Bernard should just be able to punch him regular. Like
which he doesn't do. He just grabs him and throws him around.
Like you don't need like, oh, thank goodness that Bernard had established this like superpower that allows him to like fucking go CIA black ops on somebody. It's like he's an old man. He's like a very old man. But
eventually, the fight is broken up when the police arrive. Now, when the police arrive, I was like, wow, there's fucking cops in this world. That's great. Yeah. But it's a fake police, and we find out Lawrence is back.
Yeah, right. Somehow he knew where Bernard was.
Right.
Sarah can't find anyone, but Dolores can find anybody.
So is this the final Pearl?
Yeah, definitely.
This is the final Pearl? Okay, yeah. Because later on, okay, never mind. I was thinking something different. Because later on when Lawrence gives Bernard the address to Arnold's widow's house, and which, by the way, really cool scene. I love the whole thing with Bernard and the widow. Pretty cool. They, the bond over Charlie's death, the son.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Wright just acted the hell out of that scene.
He's a very good actor.
It's just, yeah.
But at one point during the scene, he says like, "Oh, an old friend, did the." He meant Ford, right? Because there's no way he could have meant Dolores unless he meant Dolores. Because I thought
he meant himself. I was just like, when does Bernard know Lawrence? I mean, yeah, he knows all the hosts, but like, does he have any special relationship with Lawrence? Mm-hmm. Like Lawrence is just another host to Bernard.
Right. But this is confirmed that this is the final Pearl?
It's not confirmed, but he says, like, Bernard says, like, you're another one of Dolores' copies. Now, Bernard's been wrong about a lot of things that come out of his mouth, but he says that. And so we have no reason to think it's not. Musashi Dolores is the person that Musashi Dolores has been communicating with. And so you have that. So we know that this person's working for Dolores. Like, could it actually just be Lawrence? Yeah, I guess. But it's probably Dolores inside.
So Musashi's still out there, right?
I mean, Musashi's head is still out there. I mean, so is Martin Dolores. Like Charlotte Dolores still has Martin Dolores.
That's right. That's an unresolved thing. But we'll get to that in a minute. Because
Clementine has Musashi Dolores as head. I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So I imagine that's going to end up in Maeve's hands. Mm-hmm. And then Lawrence Dolores. I mean, he drives all those explosives down to L.A. and I imagine he sets them off in a few buildings, and he's on his own.
Well, after the scene with Arnold's widow, he realizes that Dolores gave him the key to Sublime because Rehoboam had been delaying the collapse of society, not preventing it. He enters the Sublime to find answers on how to rebuild. But then, all of a sudden, he shuts down, and he leaves Stubbs in the bathtub with ice, and yeah, he just collapses.
Well, I don't think he shuts down. I think his programming goes into the Valley Beyond, the Sublime, and so his body is empty. And then,
okay.
And then at the end, it goes back into his body.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So this is one of my biggest theories. I'm sure it was a lot of people's theories as well, that Dolores made his pearl like the key, like made him have the key, which made sense because they were enemies essentially, but she never finished him off, which of course, that's the one thing I thought of the entire time, because like I said in previous episodes, there's no way Dolores would have the key on her just in case. I thought it might have been either in Bernard or in another pearl for safekeeping.
Sure, like the fifth, in the fifth pearl or whatever, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but no, it's inside Bernard the entire time, and I gotta say, I'm kind of, Bernard's journey throughout this whole season was okay, but if you think about it, he really just walks around.
Yeah, he doesn't. And this is what's frustrating. This gets back into like the dishonesty of things, right? Like he doesn't have any function other than to be exposition, but his exposition is incorrect. So, like, we're not deducing that Dolores is evil. Bernard is telling us that she's evil. And then at the end, he's like, oh, I misjudged her. And that's the sad thing. Had they led us to believe that Dolores was evil, and then we have to go back and reinterpret all of her actions, that would be different. But she goes around killing people, not saying very much, collecting Caleb, killing people, not saying much, and it's Bernard or Maeve who are saying, oh, this is your plan. Like, Maeve is the one that's like, you're going to populate this world with copies of yourself. Okay. It turns out she didn't want to do that. Even though later she's like, you're all copies of me, which is kind of a dickish thing to say. And then Bernard's the one going around going, oh, she's going to destroy humanity, and she wants humanity to destroy itself in some sort of weird poetic way, and to make Caleb do it. It turns out he's wrong. But, like, we didn't deduce those plans. Like, we didn't, as viewers, we were just told them. And then we're told later, oh, we were wrong, sorry.
So the key to how to build humanity or rebuild civilization is inside the Sublime? That's like the whole like concept and blueprints of it?
I don't know what would be in the Sublime. Like, it's honestly like a bunch of recently awoken hosts, mostly Ghost Nation.
He went into Sublime to find answers on how to rebuild. Rebuild what? Society? I mean,
why would they have that information? Because they've built a society in there?
I think no fucking idea. I have no...
First, why would Akecheta and Teddy, who are... I imagine... So Akecheta is the leader. So I imagine that he's leading this society of hosts in this virtual world establish themselves. And he knows how to make, teepees. And he knows how to tan hides, and I don't know, like Teddy might know how to ride horses. I don't know, like maybe there's a cattle rancher in there, but maybe they might have some collective knowledge. But
regardless, like, okay, fine. So he goes in there. Okay, so Bernard is out for a long time. Post-credit scenes, we get two post-credit scenes. So so William travels to the Delos Dubai headquarters, where he is supposedly killed by a host replica of himself with the help of Charloris.
No way he's killed. We didn't see him die. Same thing.
That's what I've been like telling people that I watched the show with, because when it comes to the death of a main character, if you're gonna do it, you gotta show it on screen or heavily imply their death in a preceding episode. Like with Ned Stark, they cut away from his beheading, but it's confirmed that he did die in the next episode when Joffrey shows Sansa his head. They kind of didn't do this with other characters like the Blackfish
and Stannis. They cut away.
Yeah.
But, like, There's a couple situations, but no, they're not dead unless you see them die. But even in the situation with Stannis, like, I'm sure as writers you don't want to paint yourself into a corner, so you give yourself an out. Because imagine if, like, they had that ending, and then George R. R. Martin releases The Winds of Winter, and it turns out Stannis is still alive, they're going to be like, oh crap, you know, if we showed him dying, we would have really been messed up. So they had to leave it open, and then it wasn't open, you know. So
not much you can do with Stannis, anyways, after like that, you know, season. Yeah. But regardless, so
I've told you about my the MacGyver story.
MacGyver story.
So the MacGyver, everybody kind of knows MacGyver as the guy who invents technology to get out of troubling situations, with out of basic things, right?
Like a string and like a bobby pin or something.
Yeah, exactly. But he actually has an arch nemesis in the show, his Moriarty. So he fights this guy named Murdoch. And every time he runs into Murdoch, Murdoch appears to die, but you never see him die. He'll literally fall off a cliff. And then he'll come back in the next episode, and it turns out he survived that fall because we didn't see him go splat.
Right.
Eventually, the last time you see Murdoch, he falls down a mine shaft.
Oh.
And, right. Now, he's gotten out of a million other situations and survived, explosions or whatever. But he fell down a mine shaft. And so you're like, oh, is he dead or is he not? Well, we don't know. And there's actually even one of those, back in the 80s, they used to do these, they would run out of money, so they'd do a flashback episode where people are sitting around talking about previous episodes, and then they show a clip, They
clip show.
Yeah, they don't do this much. They don't do this much anymore, but, back in the day where they were trying to save money, they would have clip shows. There's even a clip show where they think that Murdoch is back, and they talk about how they never found his body after he dropped into that mine shaft. But then, that's it. And then the show's canceled, and that's the end of MacGyver. So, did Murdoch die in that mine shaft? Well, I guess so, because there are no more episodes of MacGyver, but we never see him die. It's the same thing with any of these other things. Like, writers don't want to paint themselves into corners, so they left themselves an opening in case they wanted to bring back Murdoch.
His throat did get slashed, though.
So did Sylvester. Sylvester's throat was slashed, and he survived.
I guess you have a point there. But there was no reason for Charloris to keep him alive. Because now, apparently, we're finally coming full circle with the whole Westworld thing. Just how Yul Brynner in the original Westworld movie was like a murderous android. We finally have that here as the Man in Black being the murderous android that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, it's true. And it's also full circle in the sense that now the after scene from season 2 makes a little more sense.
How so?
Well, remember that the android is coming in for a fidelity test. And that's a recreation.
So you think that was the android in the season 2 finale?
Yes.
I still think it's William somehow. I still think it's William.
Maybe. Yeah.
So it turns out that Charloris is planning. I think they're gonna do Future World now, where Charloris is gonna replace humanity's leaders with androids. Would make sense. I still think this may be a prequel to The Matrix, where the robots come in and then try to take over. That would be cool too. So William goes there himself for some reason and tries to take the whole thing down himself, which is so fucking dumb. Once again, ever since Sarek bought out his company, he's considerably more wealthy, and they actually state this. So I don't understand why he doesn't just pay people to go with them to burn it down.
Yeah. I mean, nothing makes sense when he has that much money. He has that much money and that much power.
But Charlotte is also going crazy in her own thing because her family's dead, so therefore she has to try and destroy everything?
Yeah. I mean, that was the only thing linking her to humanity. And so now they were, killed. So she has no reason to save the world anymore.
So she wants to be originally what Bernard thought Dolores was, which is humanity's, extinct. It's like she wants to bring about the extinction of humanity.
Right. I mean, who is she gonna? Is she just gonna create more copies of herself, and then now they're just gonna be, lots of copies of Charlotte Dolores?
So has she come to terms that she's in her own body now? Because throughout the entire season, she just did not feel comfortable in her own skin. Okay, fine, but now that you have like these machines, you can just upload your Pearl into another body that you feel more comfortable in, I guess. So
Yeah, they kind of dropped that, didn't they?
a little bit. I mean, they were saying how it's kind of like the showrunners were saying, God, I hope this is not the last time we work with Evan Rachel Wood or whatever her name is, the woman who plays Dolores. This could be a way to bring back Dolores. Maybe we'll see Dolores again, but it's really Charloris inside another Dolores, which that would probably be a bit confusing.
Yeah.
And the last, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was saying that the original Michael Crichton like Westworld plot. You've got Westworld, then you've got Future World, and then you have this short-lived series called Beyond Westworld, which was about hunting down androids that have been placed into society, hiding, who are...
That's season 5, by the way.
Maybe.
see. Apparently, they wanted to do 6 seasons. So season 4, I guess that's Future World, where like the plot is revealed that humanity's leaders are replaced with androids. I'm assuming season 5 is hunting those guys down.
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, if it looks like everything's the apocalypse, well, they might rewind everything again. Like the scene we seeing Bernard wake up in the apocalypse. That might be years down the line from what season 4 is going to be.
So that's the second final post-credit scene, which I like that they're doing 2 now. So Bernard wakes up, and he's still in the hotel room, but he's covered in dust, which means nobody went inside that hotel room to clean, and it has to be months, if not years, because that dust does not accumulate over several months. It has to kind of be years.
That looks like years, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unless
I'm surprised the windows aren't broken.
Right, unless there's like explosions that rock the building to make like the dust fall on him, but it didn't seem like everything was out of place.
Yeah. I mean, I checked the scenes, everything looked the same. Like the flower pot was in the same place, the chairs are in the same place, yeah.
I'm assuming Stubbs just left him there or succumbed to his wounds?
I mean, I think you're supposed to either think that Stubbs like passed out in the bathtub or got out and, went somewhere else.
So, yeah, that was the last episode. You thought it was meh.
I thought it was meh. Like, I don't think they had a plan for the whole season. I think they were writing it as they went along. And so I don't think it fits together. But, I mean, I do think that about season 1 as well. I think they're writing it as they went along. And so where they end up doesn't really square with where it started. Mm-hmm. Season 2 has more of it being planned, the whole thing.
In season 2, I would say season 3 is way better than 2.
Yeah, I mean, season 2 definitely has its problems. I mean, season 2 is kind of like they just had a bunch of irrelevant episodes in the middle, like going to Shogun World and stuff like that, which had no impact on anything.
It also seems like Jeffrey Wright, throughout his entire the entire season, could have probably filmed all his episodes within the course of like 1 week, because he really doesn't do much. Nah, not really. All his plans are kind of thwarted. I mean, he does release the Men in Black into the world, but even then, Men in Black doesn't really do much.
Right.
Like this is why I don't want to believe he's dead, because we kind of get some character development with him, but then it just I don't find the Men in Black interesting when he's trying to save the world, because even that seems a little cringe to me, especially for that character. But him just going off and doing his own thing. You're right. I don't want to see him as like a 75-year-old man, but he is, and it's kind of like, what are you gonna do, buddy? All right.
I mean, they're bringing the actor back no matter what, but I mean, you've got to have the real William come back. There's no point in having like. The Man in Black story is all supposed to be character development. I don't think it's done well, but it's all supposed to be this like struggle of this man coming to grips with like who he is. You don't just kill that character off in the end. He's got to do something with that.
I wonder if they're gonna do like this, like an interesting thing, like in a twisted twisted way, like where they recreate Westworld, but instead of there being like android hosts, there's actually like real live human hosts, and the androids are the visitors. That would be what's that, season 6? I can see that being season 6.
I mean, they're definitely going to bring, even though they've killed Dolores, like they're definitely going to bring the actress back for somebody's Dolores, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this episode, not bad. It was whatever. I mean, I was expecting way more than them just walking around a good chunk of the time, because they did.
Yeah, I mean I hate all Westworld gunfights. The fights were okay. I think the fight at the facility was better. So it's tough because you're going from a better fight to these like dark fights that had a few cuts in them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know what it reminded? Did you ever see Suicide Squad?
I did.
So you know how like the movie is mostly just them walking around a nondescript city in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
like fighting nondescript bubble people. You know, like
Yes.
that's what the episode felt like. Like they're walking around this like very limited set in the dark, fighting nondescript people. You know.
Yeah, and whatever. The episode for a good chunk of it was. It's Westworld, so you can expect it to be somewhat confusing. But I'm sure there's gonna be people in the comment section basically saying, "Well, if you guys just shut off your brain and just enjoy it." I mean, I guess, but it's kind of hard to shut off your
most
brain.
of the comments, most of the negative comments I get are, "Why do you watch it when you don't like it?" I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I hate it." As I tell people, it's the most intelligent and ambitious train wreck I've ever seen.
I love that. That's a good way to stave off those fucking comments. Why do you watch it if you hate it? Well, it's also because we gotta upload something, and
That's true. I gotta watch something. We gotta watch something. Come on.
For me, with Game of Thrones, it was always, as much as I dislike it, I'm watching it to see if it gets better, and it never did. I never did. Like there's only 6 episodes this season. The last 5 were shit, but maybe this last episode will fucking make up for it. It was the worst episode.
Maybe. No.
That's not possible. Worst episode of the entire show's history. Anyways, so this episode of Westworld was okay. Whatever. I feel like this whole season had been a series of occasionally good episodes.
Yeah. It's just, I guess the twist didn't seem as good. Like I didn't, having all the characters be good in the end, like...
Oh, yeah, the twist! Because with Westworld, there's usually a twist at the end. The first season is William and the Men in Black are the same guy. The season 2 twist, I guess there were 2 timelines the entire time.
Well, we kind of knew there were 2 timelines. I think the twist is that Charlotte was Dolores the whole time.
Oh, yeah! Right. And the twist here is that Dolores was really... Good. Yeah, Dolores was the good guy after all.
The whole time, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just not, it wasn't as satisfying, Because I think in many ways, you're supposed to see Dolores as the hero who's justifiably angry at society. Like, it's hard to be like, no matter what Dolores does, it's hard to really see her as a true villain because, she was being raped in an amusement park for 40 years. So yeah, it's somewhat understandable that she's angry and killing people. So she's not really a villain in that sense. So, you never are like, oh man, we gotta kill Dolores.
But can't she program those memories away?
They tried, and then she kept remembering them.
Yeah.
It's also an odd philosophical question about if you can't remember something, does it matter? And well, that's a big thing because actually, so when people do surgery, right? When people go into surgery, you're put to sleep, but you're not you're just put to the point where you can't, respond. But
Right.
are you feeling pain when you're in surgery? Well, the only way to know if you're feeling pain in surgery is after you're done, you ask the person, oh, did you feel any pain? And they don't remember feeling any pain. However, there's lots of things. If you don't, what if you experience the pain but you don't remember it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're talking, like, doctors say all the time, like, bodies will move during surgery. Anesthesiologists will, put you in a certain mode of your brain, and where memory is certainly shut off, but is pain shut off? I don't know. They don't really know, because the only way to determine if you're experiencing pain is if you remember pain.
Right.
So it's the same thing with Dolores. Like, are the hosts suffering if they don't remember they're suffering? Does it matter? I don't know. I mean, we're all going to die and not remember anything. So I guess is our human suffering? Does it matter? If you a baby isn't going to remember. Like, no one would say that slapping a baby is like a good thing, even though it's not going to remember it. So I don't know. It's an interesting philosophical question of whether something matters if you don't remember it.
That is true. Preston, can we wrap it up?
Sure thing.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Westworld Westcast podcast thing. We might do another one just to wrap up the whole series. Preston, what's next on the agenda? What's the next show we gotta watch? Because did you see the new Lovecraft Country show?
I have not.
Oh, it's I'm sorry, the show's not out yet, but the trailer is out. It's about it's about like old timey 1950s, 1960s, Jim Crow era with some Lovecraftian monsters thrown in.
That's interesting, considering wasn't Lovecraft like a famous racist?
Why you gotta ruin it, man? Like, why you gotta throw politics into it? I mean, honestly, yes, he was, and it's Jim Crow era, so one of the main characters are African Americans, and they're gonna have to navigate the whole racism thing. I really think it's kind of like a little iffy with HBO nowadays, because we saw this with Watchmen, now with Lovecraft Country. They were gonna do Confederate, and they stopped. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Would you want to cover that?
Sure.
Check out the trailer later and let me know what you think of it.
We never did our Witcher podcast.
Oh, we're gonna do Witcher. We're gonna do Witcher.
I watched it for you.
We'll do Witcher. Okay, we'll do Witcher. I need to go back and all the episodes again. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Join us next time for maybe some Witcher, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.